Hello, welcome everyone to the November edition of the Windows 365 AMA Ask Microsoft Anything. I am your host, Christian Montoya, and I'm joined by three awesome guests today, this morning, or this evening if you're joining from the other side of Redmond. And so I'd just like to introduce them. I'll go with alphabetical order to make it easier. So Christine, if you want to go first.
Hi, my name's Christine Girth. I'm part of the customer experience team with Windows 365.
And Pavitha?
Yes. Hi, I'm Pavitra Thiruvengadam, and I'm a PM with the Windows 365 team. And I drive end user experience on the web as well as Teams experience on Windows 365.
Hi everyone, Sam Tulamat. I am also a product manager on the Windows 365 team, and I'm based out of Boston. Happy to join today.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We're actually all in different places, so this is fun. Yeah, because I'm Pavitha, you're up in Redmond, right? That area.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and I'm in San Diego, so we're just all over the U.S. today.
And I'm in Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Ooh.
Yes. And I for folks that are joining for the first time, I guess I should introduce what I do. I am a product manager on the team as well, and I focus on identity and security for the team.
I should probably also add what I do. So product manager focused on Windows 365 for shift work, part-time workers, scenarios where non-full-time use of Cloud PC.
Okay, and I can also do that. I'm a product manager as well. And instead of focusing on a specific area of the product, I work specifically with customers on the deployments to get feedback back.
Yeah, Christine brings lots of feedback from customers. So especially if you have questions, whether here or in our tech community, we have experts like Christine that have seen how customers deploy, and so it gets all that experience and brings it back to us. And actually, we already have a question, so let's go ahead and get started. So first question from Jacob: what's new with the remote app? Will it be possible to deploy it via Intune? So I'm going to assume you mean the Windows 365 app that is in preview on Windows through the Microsoft Store. So if that's the case, will it be possible to deploy it via Intune? The answer is yes. We're working with the Intune team to make that possible, because just like today, you can deploy the Microsoft Remote Desktop app on Windows. You can deploy that through Intune, and we want to make this as easy as possible and do it with the new Windows 365 app. So yeah, if you haven't used it, it's available in the Microsoft Store. Or if you go to windows365.microsoft.com, the same web kind of portal you're used to, it's now there in the download section if you're accessing it from a Windows desktop. So those are different ways that you can find that. Also, thank you, Jacob, for your attentiveness. I love the questions. Okay, with the app, can you set it for multiple monitors? Use only two instead. Parentheses, use only two instead of all or one, and multiple accounts in the app. Pavitha, do you know more about the multiple monitors and the multiple accounts thing?
I do not know. I know, we will be supporting it even if it's not supported immediately.
Okay. And Christine, I think you had some other
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. Right now, it's not. It automatically fills all your monitors, but in the future, there will be some monitor support added in so you can control it.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, and in terms of the accounts, my understanding is that it's going to be, it is right now currently one account. When you open the app, you sign in, and you get essentially that web experience, and you get the whole Office 365 integration, or now Microsoft 365 integration, just all catered to the app. And as far as I know, I don't know, I don't think that's changing. So if you have feedback on that, if you would like the multiple accounts, then you can go to our ak.ms/w365 feedback. And just so we can take that down and understand the use cases of maybe different user accounts signed into the app. which is, again, not supported right now in the Windows 365 app. If you do need the multiple user accounts, the Microsoft Remote Desktop app on Windows does allow that. And so, keep the questions coming in. I did want to highlight, again, it's been a busy couple of months for us in Windows 365. So we hopefully seen us at Ignite and also in the technical takeoff. So we had a lot of traction there. We had a lot of folks join. So we really want to thank you for that. But we actually did, again, have announcements back, between now and technical takeoff. A couple big things actually regarding the Windows 365 app. So Jacob, this is for you. We did make sure that the conditional access behavior was updated. It uses the same, conditional access app as Windows 365. So there are some issues with it, but we fixed it. So any CA policies you make will be good. And also we just made the installation, again, not right now, it's not through the store. But when you go, it's not through Intune, but when you go to the store and download it, it just makes everything install at one time. And so those I'm essentially reading out some of our ak.ms/W365 what's new. We update that whenever we release. And the other big thing is that in our Windows 365 government offering, which we did announce at Ignite, we made sure that we now add a Windows 11 support. So it really has that full, essentially, image parity with the regular public offerings. And so now you can expect Windows 11 in any gallery images, or if you want to use custom images, either way, it all works now. And let's see, what else? So Pavithra and maybe even Christine, I know through Ignite, and since then, we've been continuing to improve on the user experience through,
Connectivity.
Short path or UDP, just any sort of connectivity. Can you just explain, what we've been doing and what to expect soon?
Yeah, so we have been having a lot of improvements that we are working on, especially to improve the reliability of the connection as well as to stay connected even after the first connection is being done. And so the way we did it was to essentially support UDP for the Windows app. And so if you are going to be using the Windows app, you will be able to leverage your connectivity using UDP. That will give you better reliability. In fact, Christine was talking about her difference in experience when she connected using TCP versus UDP. Christine, do you want to give a little bit of information on what your experience was?
Sure. So we all know that TCP has the 3 acknowledgements, so it can get a little laggy. UDP doesn't, so things become much smoother. So for the end user, it may be a great connection, but they're still complaining. It's slow. It's not as fast. UDP smooths a lot of that out. You can still have high latency, but it just feels smoother. And to the end user, that is huge. So a little while ago, while we were still building out the UDP, I was in a campground and using cell data for internet for work. With TCP, I had a latency of about 120 milliseconds. And if you've had that, it's painful. On the physical device, I couldn't even sync Outlook. The internet was that slow. I connected by UDP and it felt like I was at home. The latency was still pretty high, about 50 or 60 milliseconds, but it just felt smooth. I was able to do all my work, no problems. So it makes a world of a difference to your end users to have UDP versus TCP.
Right.
You'll get a lot less complaints about latency and just laggy experience.
Yeah, and we support that only using the Windows app. We don't support it using the web app currently. But, as Christine says, it basically unlocks your experience of taking your work anywhere. So if you're traveling, it'll be easier for you to access your corporate information using PC, but with UDP connection.
And Pavithra, how does the user or the admin check to see if their connection was made through UDP? Is
So
that
on
possible?
the app, you can basically click on the connection status, and in the connection status, it'll give you a bunch of information on what your frame rate is, etc., etc. And in that, it will tell you what kind of connection you have. It will tell you whether you've got a TCP connection or a UDP connection. And so, for the most part, as long as you have the right IPs whitelisted on your corporate network or on your Azure network, you will be able to get UDP because that generally is the faster one. If you've got those IPs blocked, then you'll most probably just be getting the TCP connection. So, take a look at our documentation, keep an eye out on it because we are still in public preview, but we should be, going into GA shortly. But keep an eye out on it. Make sure those IPs are whitelisted and you'll be able to make use of UDP. You don't need to do any extra, you don't have to enable any extra settings.
Okay, and also for the administrator side, something that's also in the what's new, we released another check for the Azure Network Connection that is checking to see if some of those UDP ports are open. So we can flag it as an administrator to let you know if you're doing bring your own VNet, whether it's actually open or not. So that can be very helpful for you as an IT administrator.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just for anyone that's new here, the ANC, the Azure Network Connection, we run checks either that are strict failures if they don't pass, or just warnings. And so my understanding, Christine, is that this one is a warning because
Yes.
it's not a requirement to run the service, but other ones like Azure AD Connect or the hybrid Azure AD join for the hybrid join Azure Network Connections. Those ones are would just flat out fail and block you, so you can fix it. So cool. Okay, cool. Thank you both. We have a question. This may be a silly question, but I can't seem to get BitLocker to work on my test Windows 365 copy C. Intune policy fails to apply, unable to turn BitLocker on manually, no error message, it just says access denied, and device encryption reflects no profile assigned. When I check the device assignment, what am I missing? So just I think just taking a step back, right now, so Windows BitLocker is a mechanism to just encrypt your drive to ensure that from physical theft, it can't be tampered with, that if there was any tampering, that you enter BitLocker recovery to show that it's yours. You just check Azure AD and enter your key. In our scenarios, in Windows 365, we don't support BitLocker right now. And that's reflected in the different, that's showing right now for you in the different interfaces you're seeing. In Intune, Intune won't deliver any BitLocker policies down to Cloud PCs. And also you can't enable it manually. And so we do have some documentation on this. I forget if it's in our Windows, it's in our docs. I believe it's the encryption article. If you go to W365 docs, I think it's the encryption article under concepts. And it has this call out that BitLocker is not supported. If you do want BitLocker to be supported, we would still like that feedback, again, in that W365 feedback channel. And the main reason why we want that feedback is, again, typically BitLocker is to help protect against physical tampering, physical theft of drives. And when that drive is in Azure, protected by all our software-based security measures and also our physical data center security measures, that risk is much lower than someone using their physical device and having their physical device stolen. So we understand there might be some reasons why you want BitLocker, but we just want to make sure that if we do actually end up trying to support it long term, that we're doing it for the right reasons. So if you provide that feedback, we definitely want the reasons as well.
And I also want to add in one other thing, that the reason you have BitLocker is you do want to encrypt the data. The data is encrypted by default on the back end using the encryption within Azure. So your data it already is encrypted at rest. So if you do need additional encryption, please include with that feedback why you need the double encryption for the encryption at rest on the back end and BitLocker to help explain the use case scenario that you're looking at.
That's a good point. Yeah, thanks, Christy, for adding that. I totally missed that. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. I think we have another question for the monitors, and I'm not sure if for the person that asked, I'm not sure if you joined earlier, but for the monitors for Windows 365 app, I think you had a question on it's always full screen, or is there a way to change RDP settings to do full screen on only just one monitor, not all monitors? So I think Pavitra mentioned it. We're working on that. That's something that we plan on adding to the Windows 365 app, because we know that you also get that experience with the Microsoft Remote Desktop client, and so we want to make sure that you have that consistent experience, whichever one you use. So Sam, just in general, I know that you mentioned that you're working on this shift worker. Is there anything high level that you can describe? I know that at Ignite we had announced that this is something that we're going to do, but is there anything else that you can tell us about it, or what we're seeing?
Absolutely. Thanks, Christian. So we, as you mentioned, made a small announcement during Ignite about the fact that on the Windows 365 team, we are working to enable scenarios for shift and part-time workers. And we said basically it is coming soon. So we don't necessarily have yet a target date. We know we are sharing that it's on the roadmap with customers, but we wanted to basically alert customers that this is something we're looking into. And so what I can share at this stage, which is something we're really excited about and would love for customers to know, is essentially as our product has grown and we've introduced Windows 365 in the market, we've heard from a lot of customers that, hey, we have information workers in our staff. And for those information workers, it makes total sense to provide them a cloud PC that is theirs all the time, meaning they can use it 24/7 and they can come back to it and enable it. And what we've heard from customers is essentially, hey, I've got a lot of other users within my organization. It could be call center workers that work rotating shifts, right? It could be a help IT desk. It could be physicians, essentially people who are unlikely to need a cloud PC to use full time. They're going to need it for a very specific period of time. And so what we're working on is essentially a model that allows us to provide cloud PCs that can be used for a duration of the work period for these workers. So essentially, let's say I'm a physician, I come in, I have my own cloud PC, but it gets only turned on when I need to use it. And when I log off or when I finish my shift, that cloud PC is turned off. And in total, what we are trying to enable is essentially for the administrators and the organizations to be able to provide more part-time use cloud PCs at a more economic way. So we're still at, as I said, the coming soon stages. We've definitely shared some bits and pieces about this, but I'm certainly happy to answer some questions on this if there are any from customers.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I think just like other features in scenarios that we have, I'll do a quick plug for our ak.ms/W365 in development. As things get much nearer towards release, think a month or two before release, we'll typically add stuff here. So if you follow other channels and or you follow in development, then Sam, I'm assuming that we'll make sure we add it there as soon as it's imminent, and then folks can get ready to test it out and all this stuff.
Absolutely. And I will add this is that, because this is a new types of workers that we're essentially trying to target. So shift workers, part-time workers, people who do not need a cloud PC full time. We definitely know that there are specific requirements for these users. So they have different user patterns. They sometimes the organization has different needs around enabling them. And so I definitely would love to hear any questions or feedback from customers as this comes up. And yeah.
And actually, Sam, it looks like someone in the forum actually, I think I had a question that maybe your description answered, because it was, does Windows 365 have plans to serve customers that have less usage per account, maybe less than 33%. We have contractors using accounts that may only need to log on a few times a month or just a few times a year. Or will these use cases still need to, or for these ones, will we need to manage Azure Virtual Desktop pools to make economic sense?
So this is, where this makes sense for you in terms of 30% or above, that is dependent on the customers, and we're still kind of learning about this, but your use case in general is exactly what we're trying to target. Is essentially we're saying, hey, we want to create a model where you can, as a customer, buy sort of a group plan that allows you to have multiple cloud PCs, each one per user, that is available only when they need it, essentially, and is turned off when they're not using it. So it kind of provides you the ability to continue using the same, great persistent desktops that you're used to with Windows 365, manage them the same way, just like any other cloud PC, but have it be more economical in the sense of if they're not actually using it 100% of the time as full-time employees, that they can use it. I think the question is that they have less usage than 33%. That's going to be where we're going to need feedback from our customers around, hey, are we meeting the 33% rate or not? I think the target right now where we're going is at least being able to fulfill scenarios where, let's say they're using it for a specific set of hours regularly, but they're not using it essentially every day, or they're not using it for full-time use.
Right. Yeah. So it's a balance between 100% and, not 0%, but a balance somewhere under 100%.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. And you said that we'll have more information later as we get it. So, all right.
Absolutely. Yeah. One last thing is we do, and I don't have the link handy, but we do have a tech takeoff that we've recorded during Ignite on this topic, where I share a lot more details. So if you would like to check out the sort of general idea of the concept and how we're thinking about it so far, feel free to check out that talk, and it will give you a really good overview.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think we're monitoring that specific channel anymore. So if you watch it, I would recommend go asking questions on our tech community channel as follow-up, just because we're not checking the videos as much. So after you watch it, go to this link to go post any follow-up questions, and we'll chat there. All right. So yeah, thanks for that description, Sam. I know that folks are interested, and I'm glad that we have some stuff we can share, and obviously we'll have more when it comes later. So Christine, I'm gonna actually direct this one for you. We had a question come in. Can you assign the same license SKU twice to the same user? For example, 2 cloud PCs of the exact same SKU, let's call it 2 vCPU, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 128 gigs of OS storage, assigned to a user, but one with Windows 10 and another with Windows 11, so you can test app behaviors in the different OSs, which they also add. This could be a common scenario among desktop engineers for testing purposes. So are users?
So currently, we cannot assign 2 licenses to the same user, 2 of the exact same licenses with the same CPU, same RAM, and same hard drive. It is a big ask, and we are investigating on how to solve this. As you are correct, we are getting the ask to be able to test side by side Windows 10, Windows 11, or side by side some other applications. We've also gotten the feedback that you may be contractors and having to connect to different networks and need different cloud PCs for that. So we are investigating it right now. We do want the feedback. And in the feedback that you send us, explain how you plan on using it, whether it's side-by-side testing, whether it's different networks, whether it's a privileged access system versus a day-to-day system, as that helps us build features that work the best for you as customers and IT admins. One workaround that we have right now, it doesn't completely solve the issue. And again, we are investigating it to solve it the best way. But right now, you can have the same resources with different hard drive levels. So you can do a 2 CPU, 8 gig, 128 gigabyte, and a 2 CPU, 8 gig, 256 gigabyte, different 2 licenses assigned to the same user, and be able to do that side-by-side testing. Right now, they do have to be in the same provisioning policy, as if they're not, you only get one provisioning policy to all your cloud PCs right now. So we don't recommend putting multiple licenses in different provisioning policies. That is also being investigated to figure out the best way to bring that feature to you as customers, but that's still an investigation. So again, we are looking for the feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I've totally done the different licenses, and yeah, I think it works for some scenarios, especially if it doesn't need specific OS storage. So if it's just the vCPU and RAM, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think because I work a lot on the enterprise side, and also the provisioning policy that ends up defining these cloud PCs. I think the biggest challenge, like the stepping stone first, is how can we make sure that we can support a user receiving a cloud PC from 2 different provisioning policies. That's that main variation there. Mostly because all the licenses are assigned, or right now you assign the license to the user before you come into provisioning policy. And so it's all about, like targeting. Sam, you worked on Intune a lot, so there's always different mechanisms of targeting in Intune, and Christine, you're well aware. And so it's for us, it's trying to make sure that we provide the right mechanism, so you can say, okay, this is for this provisioning policy, it should be this user, and maybe it's this specific cloud PC license or size. So we're trying to figure out the right way that's intuitive for you, especially as for folks that manage an Intune. So we're trying to make it familiar. And so yeah, I think it's like the 2-part process of how do we make sure that you can be 2 different policies, so that way in one of them you can define Windows 10 and then Windows 11, and then at the same time, how can you have 2 of the exact same? So it's a multi-step approach. It's a larger problem, but you're not the only one asking. We've seen it everywhere. So we're figuring that out. We're thinking about it. Okay. What's that one? Okay. Another question we have. As Windows 365 doesn't exist in my region, Sweden Central, I've created it in Europe West. So I then need to open peering between regions. The problem is I already have a 10.1.0.0 network in my region, and Windows 365 always gets that network. How could I change the Windows 365 network? Does anyone have networking expertise here? I'm curious. So are you? I think for the customer, for the one asking, are you using a bring your own network and then peering it across? Because if you're peering, then you'd have to manage the network. So I think it's your own network. And I think you should be able to control the network, add IP address range, the subnets. And so it feels like it's just maybe something that you can control, and it's just trying to get, just trying to map that out better. I don't know, Christine, do you have any thoughts on how customers can manage that?
Usually with the bring your own VNet, you have the reason you want to bring your own VNet is to have full control over that network. So within Azure infrastructure, you're building those VNets. You should be able to assign it different IP ranges, and those IP ranges should be extensions of your corporate network. Peer networking, I'm not an expert in. We will most likely, you'll most likely need to talk to an Azure expert to see if peer networking changes the IP range. That I'm not positive on. I'm not an expert on the peer networking. But if it's just the bring your own VNet, you do have full control over the network and the subnet ranges within the Azure infrastructure.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify, when you're not bringing your network, and it is Azure dJoin on the Microsoft hosted network, just confirming that we handle all of the networking, everything on the back end on the networking side. So you don't have to do that. You can, if you really, if you want to deploy VPNs like you do to, physical devices that people are using at home at a coffee shop, you can deploy VPNs to those Azure Join Cloud PCs on the Microsoft hosted network. With a caveat on whichever network, please send direct traffic to the Azure Virtual Desktop connection plane so that your users get the best user experience, just like you do for Teams. So I'm laughing because I know that Christine and her entire team, and even Pavitra, I know, you're like, please get the best user experience. Please just send it straight to the cloud. Don't tunnel it anywhere.
Yeah, VPN kills your user experience, especially if you have got a geographically distributed, user base, and you have got VPN sitting in one region. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So maybe for that, for the networking question specifically, maybe have that, if you can post that on the tech community channel, or if it's there already, we can go back and take a look. It sounds like just figuring out, how to better arrange the networking, and we could try adding the right folks. Another question we have, can we deploy Cloud PCs with Windows 11 Insider builds as a custom image, or can we only use full Windows releases, the 21H2, 22H2, etc.? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
So I can talk to it.
Yeah.
So right now we can only deploy full Windows 11 or full Windows 10, full Microsoft supported releases of those. For the insider builds, I have heard this feedback, and we definitely want that feedback. And what you're testing on it, how soon you're deploying that, so that we can get those use cases to better understand and hopefully better bring a feature that would solve that issue. But right now we can only deploy Windows 11 or Windows 10 to deploy an insider build. You're most likely going to need a custom image, and you would have to manage it yourself.
Yeah, I think, because I remember I did hear the folks that were trying to do insiders on custom images as well. And I think what you're mentioning here, or I think what the question was trying to reference here is, are you saying that the Windows Insiders isn't working on custom image? Because if that's the case, yeah, I definitely want to understand kind of what scenarios you're targeting. I mean, also, like, is it for what you mentioned, or what the other question mentioned? Like, is it for app compatibility and you're trying to get ahead on it, and you have your app dev test folks on Windows 65? If so, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Just, provide that feedback for us. That way we can see how to integrate that. Feel like it makes sense. But yeah, just give us that feedback. So then a question or from Quinn. I'm interested in using this Windows 365 initially for our summer interns, basically 3 to 4 months. And then kind of question for all of us, want to offer up some best practices and recommendations for the best IT and end user experience. So from an end user experience, any guidance there, Pavitra?
We have the new Windows app, so make sure you use that, or you can use the web client, and make sure that your connectivity is seamless. As I mentioned, try to minimize the VPN connection from the end user device network, and whitelist the UDP IP, so that way you get the best reliability and connection latency. You reduce the connection latency. And if you want to use Teams, then we support almost all the important features using the Windows app. So you would be able to unlock the normal native experience using the Windows app as opposed to the web client. So then you would need to decide exactly what is it that you need to, what kind of applications these interns should be using. So make a list of that and then decide what app or what client these end users should use to connect to their cloud PC.
Okay, and I can add a little bit to that, that I think this is a great use case for Windows 365. Deploy, provision quite a few cloud PCs for summer interns, and when they're done, just deprovision them. It's a great way, especially if you may not be able to get a lot of hardware for them right now. Another best practice is make sure all those applications that they need to use, all the settings that need to be applied, make sure they're in Intune and they get pushed out when that cloud PC gets provisioned, they automatically get pushed out to that cloud PC so that when those interns log in for that very first time, everything's already installed. Everything's ready for them. They just open up apps and can start working. They're not having to wait to download or manually download things. So make sure to utilize Intune to have all that endpoint management experience to be able to get everything to that cloud PC so it's ready to go when that intern is ready to go.
Yes,
Just
and the
to add on-
last thing I want to add is make sure all your applications are up to date. Make sure that you're using the latest image gallery, because we do have monthly releases. We include the latest security patches, etc. So yeah, make sure the Windows updates, everything is the latest, as well as the application versions that you're using on your image.
And another item, oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say for both of those, the one cool thing that you can do in terms of assigning app settings and all that is when you create these cloud PCs, I would say keep the interns in a separate provisioning policy, because then what you can do is just like your iOS enrollment or your Android, Intune stuff, Android Enterprise, whatever those enrollments are, the name of the policy that does the enrollment is tagged as enrollment profile name. And the same thing is done for provisioning policy. So that way you can use the enrollment profile name as either as for your AD dynamic group or as the filter to target policies to these devices. So I'm just a big fan of, look, there's another field that you can use that's very specific to these cloud PCs. So I'd recommend that. So a separate group, and then you can start using those for things that are only for those interns.
And another best practice to just make it easy on you as the IT admin as well is if you can do Azure AD Join with Microsoft Hosted Network, that cuts down on so much extra IT admin work that you're not having to build the Azure VNet. You're not having to worry about getting that Azure VNet connected to your corporate network. All that doesn't have to be done. So the Azure AD Join with Microsoft Hosted Network is extremely simple. You pretty much just point it at a Azure region and you say, go build, and it builds and it's ready for that end user with a lot less IT admin work.
Yeah, I second that. I worked on Azure AD Join. We want it to be simple. That's how we did it. So please use it. Sweet. So thank you. Hopefully that answered your question, Quinn. And if you have any other questions as you work into the implementation, let us know. We're happy to give that guidance. Another question we have is, what policies can we apply to ensure that cloud PCs for shift workers stay up to date and are logged off at the end of shifts? Sam, yeah, I think probably for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that. So I mentioned earlier when we were talking about how we're thinking about cloud PCs for shift workers is that we're essentially thinking about enabling those cloud PCs such that they're only on when the end user is using them for their shift. And then after they log off, we automatically turn them off and allow the customer to be able to use that license for another end user. And so one of the ways we are essentially making sure that we can enable the ability for these cloud PCs to stay up to date is that we're going to be regularly waking them up at a regular cadence to make sure that even if the user did not log off for the day or for a couple of days, they stay up to date with Windows, Intune, apps, settings, updates, and policy. So that's one of the things that we're working on. And then secondly, to the question about what happens if the user forgets to log off. So a huge part of the workflow is I log in as a user, my machine is turned on for me, and then when I log off, it's turned off, and that license can be used by others. And so if the number one I want to share is that we're building within that experience cues for the end user to remember to log off. So we're going to tell them, hey, when you're in the session, remember to log off. If they do forget to log off, there are idle detection policies in Intune today that essentially support, idle detection on AVD sessions as well. So we're going to be supporting those where you as an admin can go and say, okay, I would like to set that after 2 hours of no activity, if the user forgot to log off, please log them off. And what we will do is we will first notify the end user and say, hey, looks like you forgot to log off. And then if there's no activity, then we will log them off based on your policy, essentially. So both things can be configured for you.
That sounds like another great plug for the targeting of policies with the enrollment profile name. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yep.
But yeah, that's great, Sam. I think that's the biggest thing is we know that one of the biggest pieces of cloud PCs and being in the cloud is just being up to date, being secure. And so I'm glad that we're making that kind of front of mind for us to make sure that we offer that security, that peace of mind for customers. So that's really great.
Absolutely.
A new question that we have, what is the process to update existing cloud PCs that were deployed prior to the release of Secure Boot? To update it so that it does have Secure Boot. So that's something I worked on, so I can answer that. So with Secure Boot, right now the only mechanism is a full reprovision, which I know is a little bit heavy. One of the reasons why we haven't invested in that in-place upgrade is because it is gonna, it would cause a restart for users, and so if that's the case, and that would be okay with you. Basically, we want the feedback of, yes, I want this option to just apply it, and I know that there's going to be, or I can tell my users going to be downtime, or if we really need to have another schedule that says, okay, this service-wide, we're going to be doing this. I guess we would want some feedback because our biggest thing is just making sure that we are not interrupting you or your users, and especially if they work on something business critical. So I know that that's really cautious of us, but we do recognize that for some users, or maybe even a growing population of users, the cloud PC is their only work device, and so we are not going out of our way to cause that interruption. So that's why right now the only option is the reprovision. We would love to hear any options that you have of, if you wanted to trigger this yourself, where would that be, and or where would you expect it? So I would really like that feedback, so that way we just make sure we do the right thing. So yeah, if again, the Windows 365 feedback or W365 feedback, that's where I would really appreciate that. But it's a really good question. See, my company, so a new question. My company was eagerly awaiting the release of the Windows 365 app. Unfortunately, only Windows 11 and download from the Microsoft Store are supported. So 2 questions. When will Microsoft support Windows 10 for the app? And when will Microsoft support an MSI download option? Does anyone here have more information on either of those?
So for the Windows 10, it is being worked on. There is a difference with some of the technology between Windows 11 and Windows 10. So that's why it was released with Windows 11 first. It is being worked on. I don't have a timeline for Windows 10 though.
Yeah, and then the MSI versus the store. I haven't heard anything saying that we're moving away from the Microsoft Store. And maybe this is a follow-up question if you're online. What is there a specific reason that you would want it as an MSI? Is it for the Intune deployment? And if we're able to support deployment through the store, would that meet your needs? and or also like is your organization blocking the Microsoft Store? And so we'd like to hear that feedback as well, just because for every release and package we have to do, that adds more overhead on our team. And so we just want to understand what are the different needs that you have. So yeah, if you can ask follow up or post in the feedback or the tech community, that'll help us rationalize the ask.
And I also see the follow-up that it's for the Intune Win32 app deployment. So part of the feedback that we want is if we made it available in Intune to deploy as an app package built in, so you can pull it into Intune and then deploy it without having to change it as an MSI, would that solve the use case, or is there a specific reason that you need it in a Win32 app deployment rather than just deployed through application deployment in the store app version?
Right. Cool. So we will keep an eye out on that feedback. We're listening. That's why we're here. Oh, look. Any updates on offline mode? Ooh, yes. So I'm looking forward to this feature. My frontline workers could really use this. They operate near gas and oil pipelines in areas where limited or no internet connectivity is available. And offline mode would be a great feature for them to continue working at the site. That is a really awesome use case, and totally makes sense for being offline. So any updates on offline mode? We don't have anything to share right now. I know that we had announced this upcoming feature. I think it was in April. I feel like it was March or April. And we said that this would be coming. No specific updates yet. I think the only questions that we have is that for offline mode, I know that we're really, again, like Sam mentioned and answered on the shift workers of being able to bring things online, make sure they're secure. We have the similar kind of concern and similar areas of interest of, okay, if you're using offline mode and you're kind of checking this out, how do you want to make sure that they're secure and that it's not just someone going to the remote site and they aren't just taking this back home with them? Like how would you want to secure this if there's some sort of wipe policy, some check-in policy? We really want to understand any other methods that you would need to ensure that a device, a cloud PC that's in offline mode is not a security risk for you. So if you have any other insights or if you have any other things regarding, okay, here's what I would need to feel secure about it being offline for, while they're at the work site or while they're on a specific time period, that'll help us. But in terms of like functionality, capabilities, we don't have any other updates on it right now. Just that we're constantly iterating and trying to work through it. Yeah, and I think the other question I think for other folks, especially if those other folks are interested in offline mode, we do want to hear all the other use cases that you have, because the remote site is one of the big ones that we understand, and that one, for you, is that a regular schedule? Is that going to be a 9 to 5 on a set time frame for that worker? Or for other folks, are you looking for offline mode as more of it's actually just a one-off case, but when it actually happens, I want this capability. So just trying to gather all those use cases. That way we can make sure that our, the feature would handle that. Do we have any other questions coming in? I'm not sure if I don't think I missed anything. Let's see. So actually, Pavithra, earlier you mentioned that the Teams experience through the Windows desktop client and our Windows 365 app, that it has most of the features that you'd expect from regular Teams. can you just highlight some of the improvements we made in the past couple of months and what those
Oh,
features
yes.
are?
So, for the last 6 months, we have been constantly churning up features to improve your experience using Teams on Windows 365. And some of the most asked and important features that we have delivered so far has been background effects. So now you can background blur or add stock images as your background for Teams, just like you would on the desktop app. And we also support multi-window, so you can pop out your window from a chat, from a conversation, from a meeting, and it is very similar to what you would on your desktop app. In the last 2 months, some of the improvements that we have made is we support noise suppression. So if you're using the latest client to connect to the Windows 65 Cloud PC, you will automatically get noise suppression, which is actually one of the most asked from customers, especially with the whole work from home setup. And the last thing that we just released was the dual outgoing stream, wherein we support both desktop sharing as well as outgoing camera, which we didn't support earlier. So now you can see yourself talking as well as sharing your screen. And upcoming, we have some video improvements, so you should be able to see more reliable, higher bandwidth usage in your video streaming. But so far, yeah, these are the most asked, I would say, features, and we have delivered on almost all of them. Another one, though, that we delivered was give and take control. So if you are going to be presenting and you want to, share the presentation with other presenters, you can do that now using Teams on Windows 365. So go ahead and try out all of these features. You would need the latest Teams app installed. So make sure that you have the right Teams version installed, and you should have the latest Windows application to connect to your Cloud PC, and then you'll be able to unlock all of these automatically.
And then you said that if the customers use our gallery image for the cloud PCs, are those updated? Like, do they have to do anything else specifically on these cloud PCs to make sure they have the right Teams and other plugins?
No, just use our latest image, and you should be able to get an automatic update of your Teams. Make sure that you don't block the automatic update, because we do require new versions of Teams for us to unlock new experiences through Windows 365. So we support automatic updates if you use our image gallery. So go ahead and use that, and you should automatically get this.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Yes, less things to worry about. Sounds great. Sounds better. Sounds great.
Right. And for the most part, almost all these features have been, published as our roadmap. So if you go to the Intune roadmap, or I think the Cloud PC roadmap, and you should be able to, look for Teams, and we do keep it updated. If there is anything new, we will add it there, but, keep an eye out on our roadmap.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I guess for folks joining today, if there's anything that's missing or that's not on the roadmap, Pavitha, can they reach out on the feedback? Can they reach out on tech community?
Yes, totally. Yes, please go ahead. We do keep an eye out on all of that.
Perfect.
And I do
Yeah.
want to plug in our, other feedback. So we have in-app feedback for both web client as well as the Windows client. And you can definitely submit any suggestion that you want. It's not just about the experience that you had. If you want any new features, you're welcome to use that. And we keep an eye out on that also. So go ahead and use our in-app feedback also for the same kind of, interaction. And as part of the in-app feedback, you can also say, hey, do you want Microsoft to contact you? And so if we want any new information, we can contact you if you opt in for that.
Perfect. Yeah, I love the richer integration that we have with feedback. I know also, I think as a side note, if you do use our Windows365.microsoft.com, and also if you're, I think a Windows 365 business customer and you, manage your environment for your users there, I know that we do, have little survey questions for you of how's your Windows 365 experience. So, as you're using the product and you see those, we definitely want the feedback, especially as you're doing administration. If there's something that you were expecting that's not there, we want to hear that, because that's when you're in the mode of using Windows 365. And so we want to capture your thoughts and how we can make that even simpler. So I know that the feedback that is on our websites, on the apps, but also in the administration is just as important for us as well. So I think we have 5 minutes left. Christine, just for you, are there any fun insights that you have from customers in the past couple of months? Any new features that really hit home for customers that that you want to highlight for the group?
So I'm going to go back to RDP short path or UDP. That is, it's night and day to the end users. Most end users from the past, we'll call it, most of them dislike VDI because it's laggy, because it doesn't feel like a physical desktop. And with the RDP short path, you eliminate so many of those. It's responsive. You open up an app and it doesn't click, 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 drag across the screen. It just opens. You can move windows back and forth. Everything's smoother. It makes a whole world of difference. Many customers, when they swap and start using that for the first time, their end users don't complain as much. The actual complaints and the calls and the emails go down a little bit. Doesn't eliminate everything, but it does improve the end user experience, so they just have a better perception of the entire IT environment, the IT usage in the hardware.
And Christine, I know that we were talking about your road trip, and I'm also just going to throw a quick plug. We can tell that UDP is so seamless because when we were getting ready for this call, Christine was setting up and just pulling up this little, this channel here, and forgot it was actually on her cloud PC, and so then had to get it back to local. So that's how seamless it is, folks.
I forgot I was on the cloud PC and not the physical device.
Yeah, that's perfect. We do have one more question, and then we'll close it up. And maybe I'm being selfish because it's on Azure AD stuff. So did I miss an announcement about Azure AD single sign-on? Eagerly awaiting this one. So we did mention it at Ignite, that it is coming. I can confirm it is still coming. We're actually trying to update our roadmap this week. We're still targeting a preview for this calendar year, which means this month or next. So please stay tuned. We'll be adding it to in development soon, and then we will have a full announcement when that preview does come out. Sweet. Well, I want to thank each of you for being here. Hopefully you all had a fun discussion with us and answering all the questions for customers. For me, this is, again, humbling because it reminds, as a reinforcement of customers are using our product and they want us to help them solve their challenges. So again, thank you everyone for joining. And again, continue asking questions on our tech community channel, continue giving us feedback. We want to hear that. And until next time, thanks for joining and hope you enjoy using your cloud PCs.
Thank you.